All right, so let me just start off with sharing the pictures of the flowers.
I think you've done that. Okay, you're saying the one where the layering is.
Yeah. All of them will have a certain amount of layering.
Yeah.
So I've got some very simple shapes like this. I think this is an anthurium, no?
Yes.
And then we have sunflower, we have some zinnias or dahlias, I can never tell the difference. Then there's morning glory. I've tried to keep the colors to a minimum because I don't want you to be overwhelmed with different shades. But I want you to appreciate the merging of the colors to create a sense of three dimension, of depth, and also of texture. So that's what we are going to go about. Now we'll try and do some color merges that look like these colors. We'll use the same shades and create blending. We'll do some blending exercise with the same shades. So you become comfortable with just working with those colors. Now over here we have what looks like a golden yellow center, and
Yeah.
then that moves into a peach shade towards the outside. So these are contiguous colors. These are colors which are on the same side of the spectrum. Like both of them are warm colors. Similarly, with the sunflower also, we have warm yellows towards the center and bright yellows towards the middle and the tips of the petals. These again are the same yellow shade, so they're all contiguous as well. Likewise, even in this flower, it's pretty much the same color, not even two shades. And then we create depth through adding more layers. So this is more layering than blending, but there will be a certain amount of blending involved here as well. But when we come to, no, also let me go to the anthurium. Here also, it is more layering of the same color one on top of the other to create the texture of the petals. But the last one, Morning Glory, has two different colors, but they don't merge. You start off with almost a lemon yellow color in the center, then there's a white separator, and then you move into a mix of cobalt blue and ultramarine blue. So here the blending is between three colors, and here the two colors on the extremities are on opposite sides of the spectrum. So these are contrasting colors or complementary colors. And often if you land up mixing these two colors, you get a muddy patch in the middle. So we'll address these issues also. Yeah.
Okay.
Now keep a rag handy because we are often going to have to um, keep checking the amount of medium we have in the brush. So let me first list the different elements that you have to just keep in mind. Since you're just beginning, I'll list these down, but these are more this is not something that works 100% only with the in this manner. I'll explain, I'll elaborate on this further. Oh, 1 second. Okay. The first thing to consider is the correct brush size. Then we have water to pigment ratio. Then we have amount of water.
I think digital has spoiled you so much. I feel like there should be the percentage, like how you have CMYK. So water percent so much.
Yeah, very true. So I'll keep adding to this as I think about these, because in order to give you a fair idea of what is required, I'm gonna have to put into words with stuff that I tend to do very instinctively. Okay.
Yeah.
So depending upon the area uh, that you have to cover, the brush size is decided. So larger area, bigger brush, smaller area, smaller brush. So to give you some kind of guide, if you were to uh, look at the size of the brush and see, you can make a box about twice the length
Mm,
of the brush very comfortably with a big brush, with
okay.
whatever brush. Now, if you use a thin brush like that,
Mm,
so it'll be slightly smaller than that. See this?
good.
So it's just a
A
ballpark
kind of
idea.
rough ratio. Yeah.
So if you have a large box about 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch, if you use the small brush, you will uh, get patches. And if you have a small square that's about an inch by inch, and if you use a large brush, then you'll start getting those clouds or rings.
Mm,
Okay,
okay.
so that's generally take that as the square area to go by. Uh, then the right consistency, so amount of water, pigment and ratio. This is the color you will create. An amount of water will give you the consistency. So the consistency of the paint needs to be a smooth flow. So I'll show you the different consistencies that come up. And very important also is light strokes, fewer strokes, and by this I mean aim to stain. Once your paper is stained, you move forward. Unlike blending in color pencils or crayons, where we tend to do this back and forth,
Okay.
we dig into the paper so that we feel
Push
good push.
pigment into.
Exactly. We should not do that with watercolor. When you make one stroke and the paper is stained, you move to the adjacent space and continue the stain further. Your hold also must be very light. So if you find yourself trying to press the brush, or the brush is doing this, it's almost like it's saying no,
Mm.
no, no. More than that, like, yes, let's do this. Yes, let's do this. And then you can lift and pull it forward. So it has to be a very gentle glide this way and that. So let's try this. The first shape we'll make will be of the the sunflower. So let's make that petal shape. Let's make it down. Leave a little space in case there are more points to come. Let's
Yeah.
make a petal over here. So look at the sunflower picture that I've sent
Mhm.
and try to draw from there itself, since we have a reference. Let's draw another one of the pink flower, the last pink flower also. That is another similar looking petal, so we should be able to do that as well. Oh, great. Majbeen has entered.
And
Okay, we'll just give her a few minutes to catch up. Hi, Majbeen.
Hi.
Uh, we are doing some color blending exercises. And what I've asked Ashwita to do is draw a few petals from the flowers that I have shared. You can write this later. I'm just explaining all these factors. So don't worry about this. You can write it even afterwards when I share the page with
Link.
just leave, yeah,
Okay.
just leave a little space on the top and just get
Okay.
to drawing these. So the
Okay.
first one we've drawn is the sunflower. Let me just share that image with you so you know what I'm
It's
speaking.
on the group. I'll look into that.
Yeah, so just to be clear, this one, we're
Yeah, the middle petal. Yeah.
yeah, draw any petal that you want to. Then the second petal I've drawn is from this flower.
Okay.
Then we'll be drawing, the anthurium is just one petal, so we'll be drawing this.
Okay.
And then you'll know which one. So there's one Dahlia or Zinnia and the Morning Glory. So as we go along, I will tell you which one you need to draw. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Do you want me to give you a couple of minutes to get going?
Yes. Yes. I'll do. I'll get it.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm just going to spotlight again. We'll just give a couple of minutes to Majbeen to get started.
No, you go ahead. I'll catch up with you.
Yeah, okay. 1 second. All right, so we have these two done. Now for the anthurium, because we have some space here, we'll make a nice inverted heart shape petal. Try to follow the lines that you see. This is good practice anyway for drawing, and we'll be doing the drawing again later in more detail. But avoid using an eraser. So yeah, that's another thing. When we are doing color blending, you want to keep the surface as unmarred as possible. Okay. Now, here are, in these two cases, we are going to use a two-color blend. Like I was explaining to Ashwita earlier, to get an idea of what is the right brush size, you need to figure out, you'll know based upon the area that you need to paint. So roughly, a square area of about twice the size of your brush bristles, the length of your bristles should be good enough for that size. So let's just take some more brushes. This one about this size. Let me just draw this so that we know what I'm talking about. Because I've been trying myself very hard to figure this thing out, and let's see if my estimate works. So try and do this drawing. So this is about the size of my brush, and I have a square area of about the same. This brush is a size 10. And if I have a small brush, this is size, I think this is a 6. So here the size would be about so much. So this will give you an idea of what would be a good size for both washes as well as blending. Now with washes, you can take about this width and go all over. If it is any larger, then you should use a even fatter brush or a flat brush. But we'll go with this kind of measurement. So here, you could use this, or you could use a size in between these. Where are mine? Sorry. I'm gonna use a size 6 for this one, because I think in area it's about this size, about the smallest size square. Now remember, whenever you're doing exercises like these, just follow the instructions like we do in recipe books without expectation. So it's about observing and then noting down what you have done. The things I want you to observe when we are painting are how light your strokes are, how many strokes you land up doing. Are you aiming to stain, or are you looking at embedding pigment into areas? And yes, one more point we can put over here. No corrections. So don't do any corrective strokes. That will cause either patches or additional pigment to fall. So you will have either a blob or a cloud or a stain or a patch. Okay, so I want you to just observe right now. Don't paint. I want you to see how I'm able to do this. For blending, you need to have your colors ready on your palette. I'm using gamboge. I have a little bit of lemon yellow and gamboge mixed here, so I'm just putting the two together. And the second color is a slightly reddish uh, color. This is for the sunflower. So I am adding a little gamboge to this already existing red that I have on the side. This is a mixture of scarlet and um burnt sienna. But you can just use gamboge and burnt sienna to get this color. Now you need only as much pigment as you need to paint over here, wherever you're painting. Start painting from the lighter side to the darker side for obvious reasons. because you can then control how the flow works. Now, I just want you to observe. I'll explain all of this again. Don't try to do it with me. It's important that you watch how I do it. Keep a rag handy also. If you feel you have too much pigment, then you can just dab on the rag, remove excess pigment, and continue painting. So here's what we're going to do. Whenever you paint, if your brush is overloaded, when you put your paint down, you will see that there's like a um, you will know that there's a flooding of liquid that
Like a puddle.
yeah, that flows back into the area that you have painted. And if it is the right consistency, it will, when you bring in the color, it will stain along the way and stop somewhere as you lift the brush. Okay, I'll demonstrate this part also in a bit. So right now I've got the right consistency. See this, it's just staining and I don't even have excess over here. I will not go back on my colors. Okay. Now, this brush is a little overloaded, so you'll see that my paint will go back into the earlier color. That's not too bad, but now I have so much paint over here that if I put the second color in, that will flow back. So now at this point, I'm going to just dab my brush. Don't dip it in water again and gently just spread this. Can you see how I'm reducing the pigment over here? Don't reduce it too much, otherwise you'll get a white patch. Before this dries now, I will add the deeper color. I'll make vertical strokes along this edge. Now wipe the brush again because the first color has entered over here. Take a slightly thicker color and go again. Don't go too far behind, just along the edge. Because if you go too far behind, you will go into a territory where the color might have already dried. Bring your color to the bottom and then just stop. Don't do anything. Typical problems I find are over painting. Then starting too early. Then after this is done, you just feel, oh, I need to do a little bit more. Maybe I have a little patch left over here. So you will, while your brush holds the second color, you will go into this. Then you do that. So it's all about overworking. I want you to do this in brief strokes like that, aiming to stain. You want to give it a shot? This blending exercise is quite interesting if you think about it philosophically. As you are moving forward with your paint, don't think about what's happened in the past. Just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. Done? How's it looking?
No, not blended. It's a clear mark.
Okay, it would still be wet, right?
Yeah.
All right, never mind. I just, if you can click a picture and put it on the group, is that possible? Then I can have a closer look at it. Huh. Mejabin, did you? Okay, this is nice. Did you start blending a little too early, or did you try to correct it? There are two dark strokes on the left side.
Yeah, maybe I've done both the mistakes. Blended too early and but it
Okay.
looks it's natural looking.
Yeah, it looks quite nice. So it's not, it may not be smooth, but it doesn't look bad at all. It looks perfectly okay.
Yeah.
This is definitely workable. Yeah.
Mine is
Let's,
very weird.
yeah,
I think it dried too much before I took the second color and maybe too much of it. I don't know,
yes.
maybe leave
It's,
it.
yeah, there's two things. It did dry too much. And maybe you also needed a little more water in your first color. So you were overcautious with how much water you
Mm.
took. So that, and the pigment might be a little too thick. That's why it has dried. And before, uh, as it came to the bottom, you, okay, let me say that all over again. So when you are painting this part, load
Mm.
the brush before it becomes dry. So don't let the brush become completely used up with paint. Fill
Ah,
in or
okay.
refill your
Got it.
color
Yeah.
more. Yeah. And then you will notice that the bottom edges all have certain wetness.
Yeah.
And only if it has that should you add the second color. Now we have a second opportunity over here.
Mm.
So this one, we will again use the same color. And then we're going to use a lighter version of uh, crimson and scarlet. It's a very beautiful color. So I'm just clearing out one section for my palette. Okay. The brush size remains the same. We have, removing this dirty color also. We have crimson, not too much. Sorry, I'll bring it in the frame. And scarlet. Even orange works very well with this. Crimson and orange also make for a very lovely color, which when becomes lighter or merging with gamboge becomes a beautiful peach shade. All right. So the second petal, we go from inside to outside. And here now, we want a very light consistency. So it's fairly, the water to pigment ratio is about the same, but there isn't too much pigment. So it's, let me show it to you first, then you'll know what I mean. So it's a very light color, but it's not too watery. And as I take this up, again, the same thing happens. I try to keep that edge watery. And then with the same brush, I'll take the next pigment and I'll gently add it. Look at how carefully I'm adding it so that it does not flow too much into my original color. Because all of that is already drying. There isn't too much happening there. And continue in the same way right to the end. Now here there's ample paint, so I should not be dipping more. Otherwise, I'll get a big cloud that will come and cover everything. And this, I'm just going to let it be and let it blend and then let all the pigment, the fibers settle with all the colors. Okay, want to try this one?
Yep.
All right. So Ashwita, when you are painting this, are you holding the book or are you sitting with your chin on your left hand and paint?
No chin on left hand. No
Okay.
chin on left hand, but yeah, I'm not holding with my second hand.
Huh,
Yes.
okay, so try doing that because when your left hand is not holding the book, your right hand becomes very heavy.
Okay.
It just works like that.
Okay.
So this is something we learned in calligraphy. For calligraphy, we need to keep ourselves balanced. And then because certain letters we have to write with a very fast stroke and they have all the curves have to be balanced in that. And it only happens if your hands are on your paper and the hand glides over. And I noticed that the same thing applies even for painting. That if both your hand, painting, drawing, both the same. Your hand being light is an advantage even in this case.
Better, but still needs more.
Okay. But you're getting a feel of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, good.
But I think I put too much water, so the paper, I can see the paper texture. I don't know if that's like I'm seeing grains. Let me get that.
Yeah, you will see that for a little bit, but that will
It
change.
will dry.
Yeah,
Okay.
as it dries, the fibers will settle down. Even mine had become very visible, but they have settled down. That's okay. At that point, if you had been painting even more, trying to blend further, then that would definitely cause them to jump up and I guess, relocate, dislocate, come off, and then you'll see those clumps everywhere.
No, that is not thankfully there this time.
Okay, good. All right. Now for the anthurium, we are going to do this little bit of blending with maybe even a smaller brush if you've got a 4-number brush, where I'll just show you. We will start off with the same color that we've used over here and here, the gamboge at the tip, but then wash the brush, wipe it, and then just extend the color further down to the center, and then add more gamboge. So this is a 3-color blend. It's very subtle. It's good practice for you to blend from one shade to a second. The second, even if it is just water, is considered as the second shade because we are using water as zero pigment to spread the paint to come to the other side, and then adding the actual pigment, that will be the third shade. Now, before we start painting the rest of the anthurium, I'd like you to try just drawing the morning glory. The flower is not too difficult to draw, so but I'll show you how to go about it in any case. I think the structure of the morning glory almost looks like these petals have all merged. Sometimes it looks like it has 5 merged petals, sometimes it looks like it's got 10 merged petals. But I generally see a pentagon in morning glory. So go with the, start off with a structure that you can draw for proportion, which in this case, always start with a circle. And then from here, you will get other distinguishing marks. Now, I'm just doing this because it's easier than to identify other shapes. So from the center of the circle, you have one line going towards 12 o'clock, one distinct line going towards 2. Then you have one coming towards, I think, 4 or, yeah, 4. One coming towards 7. And then not such a distinct line coming towards about 10 o'clock. And then there are lines almost in between. So you have one here, and the spaces in between. But the points that I have shown you are almost the points where you'll see that the flowers petals go to the extremes. That's where I see the pentagon. Now, as always, I would request you to try and see these shapes yourself in the flowers that you want to draw. This is a mere example of how you can start seeing basic shapes in things like flowers that can help you at least start drawing on blank paper. Always, as always, the problem is where do I begin? So if you can begin with a circle with a few lines, it just sorts your life. I'll share the image, so in case you feel you want to use that as a reference, it'll be handy. So we'll draw that flower over here. Now, remember, if you need to draw just a few points of reference for the flower, you don't need to draw a very busy circle and too many lines. These are just reference points. So just draw a light circle like that. Since we have to paint, we don't want to have too many lines here that we might need to erase. These lines also are not exactly straight, they are slightly curved. So you can directly draw those curved lines. And then after you've drawn this based on the shape that the picture that I have shared with you afterwards, one with the grid, go back to the original picture where you will then see how these lines figure as in terms of the shape of the petal. So you have a petal shape like this, one line coming here, then one petal like this. This is the second line that we have drawn, the 10 o'clock line. There's a little V-shaped slit, and then you have one line over here. This again, as expected. And so on. So there'll be some places where your line will go a little inside the circle as well. So don't get too spooked with that. And some places where you feel you might need to make adjustments, so don't get spooked with that either. Like my line over here is too horizontal. I need to make it somewhere here. That also works pretty well. And then only erase the pertinent lines. You don't need to go all over the drawing. The less disturbed your page surfaces, the smoother your colors will fit. Now, in a situation like this, the temptation is to paint everything in one shot. It can get a little daunting. But as we are beginners, I'm going to advise you to paint literally one set of petals at a time. You could probably do like this half and then this half. Start from the center and then do that extra petal from one joint to another, so that in case you have an overlap, it will just reinforce these lines without making it look patchy. And as you can see, the flower does have some patches. So if there are some patches, you don't need to stress too much. Okay, I'm going to clean another patch on my palette because this is a very dull blue. Now here I'm going to use the number 4 brush because I'm looking at potentially doing just small areas like these one at a time. I could also do it with this brush. Number 6 should also work. And if you want, you can try both brushes. Definitely don't use the number 10 brush because you will have too much medium and all of that will just come into the center. So let me start with number 6 brush for the colors. I'm just making the colors right now. I'm using ultramarine blue and cobalt blue. I think I might need a little bit of cerulean also to add a little pizzazz to our blue. It's looking very dull. Yeah. Ultramarine is a much better blue than cobalt blue for this flower.
Yeah.
All right. And wash the brush, wipe it, and then use lemon yellow this time. So we could put the lemon yellow in this corner. Okay, and this is how you begin. Now that we know what this exercise is, and we've done a little bit on the anthurium as well, start off from the center and put a little bit of pigment on maybe one petal of two segments. Don't go too far in this. Wipe the brush. I think I should reduce this a little bit or just spread it over here. Now, with just a damp brush, I'm pulling this color further. Even further, because the blue is so intense that there's going to be a little bit of, I guess, backdraft, you can say. And merge perpendicular to the edge. You'll also notice that there are some, I guess, strokes visible even in the flower. So you can make those strokes. You don't have to even try to make it smooth. And then just finish it off towards the back. Mine has become extremely patchy, but I'm just going to leave this so I can show you how I can make the correction afterwards. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue through the others. I'll come back to make a correction over here. Okay, this is a much better blending. Okay, also please rotate the book according to what is the most convenient direction to paint. If it's easier for you to paint, pulling the stroke towards you, then make the book upside down.
Hopeless.
Get it? Are you getting it?
I'm not getting the white in between. It's somehow escaping. It's
Okay.
so when you do the yellow and then you start the blue from the yellow, you come backwards in. I think I must see.
See, I'll show you again. This is
Yeah,
the, okay, I'm just
yeah.
making it in about a quarter of the petal in the middle. Now I have washed my brush and I'm spreading the yellow with water, and the edge will mostly be clear water over here where I have to blend with the blue.
Okay.
And then I'm taking very little blue because I don't want that blend to be too distinct. So I merge with that water, and then the next round, I take a slightly thicker paint
Okay.
and then make it deeper towards the edge. You can see the difference in the consistency, no? The pigment,
Yeah.
the consistency is the same, the ratio of the pigment and water is the same, but just the amount of pigment is more than before. So when you've painted these, just note which ones you did in what order. This is one, this is two, three.
Ah, horrible.
Oh no. Okay. Okay. Never mind. Let's just see what's happened. Let's diagnose.
Try one last.
Oops. I have used brush number 6 in this one, not 4.
Okay. One petal at last looks a little bit like some things.
Oh, good.
Yes, I'm so unhappy today. So no,
It's
you
okay.
can just.
So in the big picture, literally, this doesn't matter. These are just exercises. Even with such, if I were to make all my petals like this or very messy also, if uh, if we make a large bouquet or a whole page, it does not look really bad. So allow yourself this little bit. We are looking at making our pictures look like photographs. So bar is very high. All right, so once this is dried, here's where the layering comes in. And for this, I'm going to use a small brush. This is 0 or 1. It's really tiny. And I'm going to take the same color of blue that we used before. And this time you use a very light hand to reinforce some of the dark shades, like over here. So you need, whenever your brush becomes very tiny, you need to use a slightly thickish paint. So I just make a light line that goes in. Now this line, if you can master it, you can make very realistic illustrations by doing much of detailing line by line. This is not how watercolor works, but I absolutely enjoy making details with a very thin brush. Normally, this is the technique used by um, miniature
Yeah.
painters. So this is what I'm just going to do this as a demonstration. So once you become comfortable with consistency, you will be able to then make very gentle strokes to increase the depth of color, stroke by stroke. But you should you should sense what is happening to the paint by just, I don't know, some kind of sixth sense. You hardly see what is happening, and you know how much paint there is in the brush. It's very light and very dark, dry, but yet you are able to create these kind of shapes which give depth to the painting. So this is next level. We will do it at some point. But basically, we are layering one color onto the next. We are going to do a little bit of this on the anthurium. So please note down the brush you have used. And also, if you feel, you can write the colors that you have used also. But I'm going to instruct every time you write anything, it has to be written in a straight line. Don't make shoddy notes. That looks horrible. That makes your page look terrible. And every little thing that you do on your page must look like a thoughtful composition, even if it is just writing an odd thought here and there. Because these practices make you look at every page or everything that you do as a work of art, so that even your notes then can look like Da Vinci's notebook. All right, now for the anthurium, you'll notice that there is a certain texture on the anthurium. So I'm going to draw that texture out with pencil, but very lightly, like I did before, so that I don't have to erase it. Just pay attention to where that line comes, to the base of this standing structure. And from there, these veins stick outward. So one side of the veins is light, one side is dark. You can then, when we are going to paint this, we are just going to leave one section unpainted. There is a more complex structure on the right, but we're not going to bother making that right now. The color for the anthuriums is just a plain scarlet. But using a single color is usually very boring. So I'm going to make a mix of scarlet and put a little bit of orange in that to keep it vibrant. So I would say this is maybe 10 to 15% orange and the remaining scarlet. Now this is a very dense color, but I'm not going to put the dense color as the first wash. I'm going to reduce the pigment. And if you want, you can test it out. You just want a light colored wash. It should not, even this is too much. So I'm going to take a little bit of water onto one side and reduce the intensity of the pigment. Wipe my brush and then pick this up, test it out again, see how light it becomes. This is how light I need it. Hydrate my brush one more time. Come back to the same shade. And now I'm going to create a wash on two sides. Although I've made very little paint, it should be sufficient for me to make a wash on both sides. And in this case, I'm not going to, actually we can just do blending on one side. So I hope you're observing this. Huh? Start with color on one side. Press the brush down this time. The earlier times I asked for you to be very gentle. In this case, we want to quickly spread the paint. And just around a few of these shapes on the right, don't paint on two sides of the line. And as you come lower, you can add the deeper color. So I'm adding the light color from the top. And as I come lower, I start blending in the deeper color. Just throw it in. And this part, now we know how to make it lighter. Just use some water or just residual wetness in the brush and spread it out. Then we have to wait for the color to dry. Let me know when you're done, then we'll start drawing the rest of the flowers. Can we move? Shall I take on the next flower?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to draw the sunflower now. And I just want you to have a look at the sunflower together with me. My structure of drawing will be to first draw the flower, the petals that I see fully. Like I see this one, I see this tiny fellow, then this fellow, and then the petals that are underlapped by the the first three or four that I'll end up drawing. But we are not going to make the lines too precise. I want you to also practice drawing very freely. So this particular flower, I want you to be able to draw in under 2 minutes. It helps that we have only 20 minutes of class remaining. So I'm not going to give you too much time. It's 6:12 right now. I just want you to see how I'm drawing it. Don't draw right now. Don't draw with me. I'll give you time afterwards. But this is how you go about it. Hold your pencil lightly, and while you're looking at the flower, draw these shapes. We are not going to look at accuracy too much, and we are creating a texture with pencil lines itself. So look at each petal that you're drawing and try to get that angle right. If you don't get that angle, doesn't matter, just continue the line and make an additional petal, it doesn't matter. If your flower looks a little lopsided, doesn't matter right now. Do this to the best of your ability within 2 minutes. If you draw with a very shaky hand, unfortunately 2 minutes won't be enough, and you won't be able to draw these lines which are about at least 2 inches long. You might be tempted to draw a very small flower, within which then we can't create too much drama of color. And we don't want to erase. And also we don't want too many pencil lines, because then that whole vibrancy of the sunflower will be subdued. That's it. No more than this is required. Okay, so it's 6:14 right now. Till I'm giving you till 6:16 to make a quick sketch of the sunflower, which we're going to paint. At 6:16, I'm going to start painting. So I'm leaving you no time. Now it's 6:16. Chalo, 6:17. If you're looking at the flower on a monitor, then hold your book upright. Try to not look up and down. You can look side by side or keep it upright so that you just keep your eyes at the same in the same plane as far as possible. Okay, 1 more minute to go. Okay, I'm gonna start painting now because you will continue to draw, I think, while I'm painting also. So let's go back to the same colors we've used here. Gamboge. And then for the internal colors, a little bit of scarlet with burnt, oh sorry, not scarlet. You have gamboge with burnt sienna. You have a warm yellow color. Now, if you can keep your brushes down and just observe. This painting is going to be very free painting. Unlike the Morning Glory, which was becoming a little too precise, I want you to enjoy a, another way of painting also. So here, it's more about just spreading this color pretty much like how we did over there, but a little more freely. So keep your paint fairly wet so that you can paint in pretty fast and the color still remains wet. So try to remember all those times when you tried to paint and you thought that the color was dry and then you put in a second color and then everything merged, that kind of consistency. And then use the second color to freely merge into the first.
There's gamboge and there's burnt sienna.
Yes, correct. Or you can also take a little bit of scarlet in that. So just with a few strokes, don't try to blend too much. Now here's another thing that one does for blending is a wet on wet stroke. We were doing a wet on wet directional stroke, right? But here you can just drop it and that'll also blend. Now before you start painting, I want to show you how this story ends. You bring in all this color towards the center. And here now we will add a little bit of burnt umber in the center. Now look at where I have brought in the color and where I'm putting the burnt umber. Knowing how much paint or pigment I have brought to the center from all the sides and the fact that there might be too much pigment, I'm keeping ample caution and adding the burnt umber only in the center half of the plant, not too much outside. This allows me to then make adjustments in a second layer also. Okay, so you have 2 minutes for this coloring. Remember, aim to stain, very light strokes, smooth from all directions.
No.
Now, before my burnt sienna in the center completely dries, I'm going to add some more dark patches. This time now, because it has dried a certain amount, it's hopefully not going to spread too far. And to this, I'll put down all these colors later, so don't worry about that. I'm adding a little darkness by adding cobalt blue to my burnt sienna directly in this mix. So in some places you might see that cobalt blue as well. So here's what we are allowed to do in watercolor. As opposed to photography, in watercolor, you are allowed to interpret colors and shades to create impact. In photography, you really have very little choice. You would shoot a picture of what you see. The subject doesn't can do only so much. Maybe you can change the lighting. Now this is traditional photography, not AI generated photography and not the tweaked photography. So in over there, if you don't have too much light, you may not be able to see texture. If you see a certain color, you might just see shades of that, but not interpretations of that shade. Whereas as artists who are creating everything from scratch, we have the option of making an interpretation. So if we want to put a shadow in this flower, it does not have to be the color that we see in the photograph. It can be an interpretation. And you just use a blue or something, and still it'll work as a shadow. All right, are we done? If you're doing anything more, that means you're overworking. Chalo, let's move on. Last 5 minutes. I want you to move back to the anthurium. This time round, we are going to use a little bit of brush manipulation. This is layer 2 now. I want you to see how this is done. I'm not using a very thick paint again this time, but it'll be slightly thicker than the wash. And I'm going to do this segment by segment. So I'll come in through the center and paint a little bit on the inside. And then I'm going to leave a little gap. And here I'm going to turn my book around so I can see where my brush is going and leave a gap there. Replenished color before my brush is dry. And do the same from the other side. Get the texture also. Now, if you're painting just with the tip, you're just using half of the brush. So I want you to press the brush down so that you get a deeper color towards the tip end and a slightly lighter color towards the middle of the brush end. Same thing here. So this is called brush manipulation when you use this in calligraphy. It works very well for art as well. You press the brush down so that you change the depth of color along the stroke. And in this process, you can also create those additional textures if you feel you can see them.
Which color did we use for this flower?
This was,
Scarlet.
I think it was scarlet and orange. So this is about 80% scarlet and 20% orange. If you can just andazi se make that. Now I've made these shades very light right now because it's better to make lighter shades and then build on this than make dark shades and then you have then you're stuck with it. Now, if I want to darken this, you don't have to do this, I just want to demonstrate. I will change the color by adding maybe a deeper red or even a burnt umber, but no black. Don't deepen your colors by adding any black. And I can repeat pretty much the same stroke, but I will refrain from going over the same areas because then otherwise it'll just look very flat. So if you want to add more depth, paint something less or paint something else. This will start adding more drama. So all the layers of color that we made before should be visible. And only the few places where I see this dark color will it come. And then the rest of the stuff that I'm doing almost looks like I'm drawing with brush. Because I've not drawn anything in pencil. I'm drawing those shapes as I see them. So we just need to make sure that we put the shadows in the right place. And there's a series of shadows usually, one above the other. That takes care of the illusion. And if there is too much contrast, we can always go back to our original color or maybe a version of that color and fill up some extra space like this and make it more vibrant. Again, not all over because then that just defeats the purpose. So here I've taken more orange and made it vibrant. Always only aiming to stain. So the same thing that we've done here, we can use the deeper color in the sunflower and use just plain brush strokes on the sides of some petals so that they look like they are standing up above the others. Some places you have shadows like these. Some places you just have shadows in the middle. So this is the lightness of hold in the brush. You should be able to quickly plunge the brush onto paper and pick it up. And in some places, you can just draw extra lines as you see them. Do it. Finally, to deepen the center, I will use a combination of cobalt blue and burnt umber, and maybe a little bit of black if needed to fill this up. So this is a multi-tone black. It's not just one flat black. This allows us to have some dimension even in the darker colors. Some places the dark pigment will settle, some places it'll be light, and it'll still be seen through. So we use that fully to our advantage. Okay, now, do you think you can give the other two flowers a go? At least maybe the peach colored dahlia. This one I think should be possible, no? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today is not the day. Maybe.
Try making it like the sunflower also if you want to. You don't have to make it too accurate. And then try the same kind of technique for painting. You should be able to do it. All right? Okay, so let's go over the different aspects that we had spoken about in the beginning. Have you figured out brush size and area to be painted?
That one is
You've got that. Okay, water to pigment ratio.
no.
All right. So then is it about the amount of water in? Because there's two aspects to this. One is getting the shade right. So that's water to pigment ratio to get the shade. And the other one is to get the consistency. Are you happy with either one of them?
Shade, yeah, I think I'm getting that, but it's just the consistency. Sunflower is better because yeah, I was not thinking too much, I think. The
Yeah.
ones that came in,
Yeah, also it came a little later, so you've done a lot of painting. So
yeah,
some muscle memory might have built in also. Then are you getting lighter? Are you making lighter strokes?
yeah, that is also working.
Okay. Then are you able to just stain and not overwork?
Not yet.
Okay, so then that needs work. And no corrective strokes.
No, that I'm not doing. I don't think so.
Great.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
4 out of 6 is not bad. Good. Najbeen, how are you doing?
Fine.
Going okay?
Yep. I'll just show it to you. I don't know. I made a sunflower after a really long time. Is it visible? No. Maybe
It's a little blurred. Yeah,
I think I must have activated a blur thing.
maybe.
I'll
But
just
this sunflower looks more like an imaginary sunflower. Were you looking at the reference image?
no, I did look at that, but then and then I had some running thoughts and everything blurred out.
That you should not do. This is again another philosophy I can throw in. Be present with your subject matter.
Okay, I just sent you some
Okay.
my pictures on the group.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let me just see these. Come on. Okay,
The,
so
the
here,
morning glory, I'm not happy with the morning glory.
uh-huh,
I think I'll work on it again.
okay,
And sunflower, I think there was some wet spot and I didn't wait for it to dry too much.
yeah. So I can see that you are still painting with just the tip of the brush. I hadn't covered this topic earlier. Um, when we are painting, uh, generally with watercolor or anything with a brush, look at pressing the brush down more uh, than we're used to. Okay, let me just demonstrate this one last bit here. Our normal, um, normally, whichever tool that we draw or color with has a fixed tip. We have pencils, crayons, color pencils. So we are used to just painting with the tip of that tool. But with the brush, we can do this. And we can also do this when you start off with something thin and then you press it and make it fat. So when you're working on something like a sunflower and you're trying to make these extra strokes over here, the way I see them in the center, you can start with a thick stroke and then lift your brush up. You should be able to do that. The whole flexibility of the brush is to be able to spread the color in more ways than just with the tip of the brush. So try that next time. That way you can get a nice thick stroke to thin stroke, thin stroke to thick stroke, and then just all sorts of manipulated strokes as well. The other thing to be concerned that I would be concerned about slightly is again figuring out what is the right time to add that second color. You already seen that in some places, I think the paint had dried, so that was fine. But in one place it hadn't dried. So you need to be a little careful there. That you'll do automatically. Um, what was I going to say? Now that it is dark over there, no, you just let it dry completely. And you could add that same dark shade in other places because I see that there is more opportunity to create contrast in the rest of your flower. So it's not going to look like a mistake if you add this shade to places over here, just in a few places, and then
Okay.
go over the center with a deeper shade one more time after the whole thing dries up.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it for today.
Yeah. Sure.
Next week, with your class, I will be doing loose illustrations of floral compositions. So this would be like wreaths or bouquets, something that you can do for small gift cards maybe, or just like a tiny illustration at the corner of a page, which just it's about composing colors to look like florals. It's a very nice exercise. All right,
Okay.
cool. So
Okay.
I'll
I'm
see.
meeting that day, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to get back in time, but let me see. Hope so.
Let me know in
Maybe so.
advance
Yeah, I
because
will. I will.
if you feel that you want to start half an hour later or something, if Mejbeen is okay with it. For me, Wednesdays I can
Oh,
push class a little
okay.
later.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Fine.
I'm all good as long as others are also there. I'm fine.
Yeah, because between her and I, she gets bored alone. So let us know. We'll push
I will.
by half an hour, so that both of you can attend.
Sure. I'll let you know.
Okay, chalo,
Okay.
bye.
Bye.
Thanks.